Welcome, everybody, to TNNA's very first Diversity and Inclusion Town Hall. I'm really excited that there are so many people here. I think that this is really important work, and I think it's really great that so many people thought that it was important to show up. And I will introduce myself. I'm Courtney Kelly. I am the board representative here tonight. I am the current vice president of TNNA. And as a board, we talked in January about this very issue and our need to bring some content to our members so that we could all sort of grow and change and learn as an organization. So this is why we're here tonight. Those of you who have done committee work with the board or have been on the board know how long it takes to move this ship. So the fact that in the winter and spring we thought, you know, we really need to do something, and then we're able to, by the June show, do something is really spectacular. Is it perfect? No. But are we doing something? Yes, and that is, I think, really speaks to sort of the heart of the matter. I will not go on for too long, but I do think that I want to say that TNNA lacks diversity as an organization, and diversity means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But we have structures in place in our organization that create barriers to entry, and as a result, we lack diversity. We have a bylaws committee that formed, I believe last year, to look at what structures we have in place as to who can become members and why. And they have come back with some really excellent recommendations. We have a membership committee that is looking at why people aren't joining and what bylaws need to change to make sure that our members represent the larger knitting community and not this one very specific aspect that's a little bit old school, like the whole retail wholesale model of business. It's just one way that business is done, but there's a whole wide world of people doing lots of really exciting and creative things, and we need to bring them into the organization and make them feel welcome. So that's a little bit of like our structure and the work that we're doing kind of behind the scenes. Part of what I hope comes out of this meeting tonight is maybe that TNNA can create a diversity and inclusion committee to take these bylaw changes and to take the membership committee recommendations and put some action items in place. And that's something that we'll be talking about at the board meeting after the show this weekend. Why are we here? Well, we're here because this organization, like I said, doesn't represent the diversity of our knitting community. And I think everybody here would probably agree with that. Social media being the great leveler and democratic place where all of these conversations take place, should that diversity that exists there and those conversations that exist there affect our businesses and our personal lives, and there's no reason why we shouldn't be having those hard conversations here. We have a really excellent panel who has volunteered their time and experience and personal experiences to share with us. But just a reminder to everyone that our panel is not made up of experts. They are experts in their field, and they are humans like all of us, and they volunteered their time, energy, and their vulnerability to be here. So as the week progresses, and you see someone who said something and you want to follow up on that conversation, just wait, because we are all here to conduct business. So let's keep that respect for each other's space and ability to conduct ourselves this weekend. We're going to do a lot of active listening, and I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Trock, who's going to help moderate. Thanks.
Hi, so I'm Stacy. Before I introduce the panelists, I'm going to start by saying what's completely obvious, or at least I hope it is, that I shouldn't really be moderating this panel. I'm white, heterosexual, able-bodied. I don't really have a whole lot interesting or in-depth to say about underrepresentation or diversity or inclusion. But our membership is embarrassingly non-diverse. The organization doesn't reflect the population in our industry. There are business owners out there who aren't in our membership, and it certainly doesn't reflect the diversity in the knitting and crocheting and cross-stitch and needlepoint consumers. And that's a serious problem. When we have consumers who don't walk into a local yarn store because they don't feel comfortable or they don't feel like it's for them, that's a really serious problem. If we have business owners who don't feel like they should be part of this organization, then we all have a problem. And if there are consumers who look at a manufacturer's advertising and for some reason feel like that product isn't something that's speaking to them because of the representation that's shown, it becomes a really serious problem for all of us. And that's something we all need to work on. So I'm here because I'm the chair of the social media and marketing committee. And someone sent me a tweet, and then I sent an email saying we should do this, and we're doing it. Like Courtney said, it's not perfect. My job is to make sure that we're all having a respectful and open conversation, and that everyone in the audience and our panelists feel comfortable sharing what they have to say. And hopefully we'll all learn something here. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves, starting with Megan. If you can say your name and your company, and I guess, yeah, whatever that's good. Whatever else you feel like saying.
I'm Megan Fernandez, and I am the co-founder and editor of Pom Pom Quarterly.
I'm Lucinda Iglesias. I'm the owner of Montrico alongside with my husband, and we're in Quebec, so we have our own challenges in Quebec that are not much different than they are here. Sometimes we like to think we're better in Canada, but we're not. I am Yvonne Obstedal, and my husband owns our yarn shop, and I am his purchasing agent and the yarn enabler and kind of entertainment for the yarn shop. My daughter also is there, and she manages it. We just purchased the yarn shop in end of August, and it has been an eye-opener for me. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this panel was because I no longer want to be an ostrich with my head in the sand. I want to be a participant in making change.
My name is Dennis Rinkenberger. I own a small yarn shop in Freeport, Illinois with my husband. We also about 6 years ago started the Yarn Guys, import distribution for Rama yarns in North America. And being in a very small Republican town, I felt like maybe we could join in on the conversation a little bit as well. So yeah, there we go. Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. And as Courtney said, these are not professional diversity experts. They're fellow members who have volunteered their time to tell us about their experiences. So we really do want to thank them for that. Okay, did everyone get a card? Cards up. Okay, here's how this goes. At 6 p.m. in Pretend World, there's going to be a networking event with some really great business speakers that are really a boon to your career. Okay, and I'm going to tell you some things about your number on your card. Okay, so when I get to your number, feel free to signal that that's you, and I will tell you some things about you as a person on your card. Okay, aces. Aces, we are just so excited to have you. Just so excited. Come at 5. Drinks are free. 2s through 6s. Welcome. We're really happy to have you. Starts at 6. 7s. Welcome. Just so you know, there's only urinals at the event.
Is that a problem?
8s. So 8s, welcome. You may not know this. You don't have a car, and getting to the event is going to take you 2 hours each way and require 3 public buses. But you're welcome to come. 9s. Oh my goodness. I didn't know 9s ran businesses. Well, sure. Come on. I mean, I don't think there's anyone you're going to know, so I understand if you have other plans. 10s. 10s. Oh, we are so excited for you to be coming. You are a real star, and you're going to be such an asset. Lots of movers and shakers. I'm going to bring you along so you can meet them, but can you just not mention your partner? Because, I mean, not everyone would be comfortable with that, and I know how important it is to you to make a good impression, right? Jax. You're in a wheelchair, and the event is in an old building with stairs, but you know, you are more than welcome to come. There's speakers. If you stay outside, I'm sure you'll just catch most of what's going on. Queens. You're a single mother of 2 kids.
Queens.
Yeah. And your babysitter canceled. Kings. You know, the event tonight is going to be conducted in a Scottish Highlands accent. I am sure that's fine because none of us have problems understanding that. Oh, by the way, everyone is welcome. So anyone with a 7 or above felt like they didn't really feel like coming anymore? You can raise your hand. Does anyone want to share their particular number and why? White shirt. Oh, sorry. Good job.
2 hours each way. Like that's
Not worth it.
Yeah.
Behind Jacqueline.
I'm a Jack,
Yeah.
and I'm almost sort of actually like a Jack in real life. I have
That's the
one.
wheelchairs. Yep.
I actually have like that hand. And I'm belligerent. I'd go anyway, and I'd make a stink about it, and I would give them a hard time as to why they can't be accessible to me. And I'd be there to the end of the event, and I'd give them a hard time. And that's who I am.
So did my saying everyone's welcome at the end help anything? No, it didn't really. Anyone ace through 6 feel bad for the other people? Did you secretly like, yes? I know I would have been like, I'm a 4. You're seething. Okay, good. That's probably the right response. So if you felt bad, it's probably a reflection in real life because all of us have probably made another person feel excluded inadvertently or advertently with regards to our business. So inclusion isn't just about saying that everyone's welcome. It's about creating an environment where everyone actually feels welcome and can attend. And that's a bit more about what we're going to be talking about today. All right, so we're going to kick things off by getting started talking about what diversity is. Sorry, I don't have a paper. There we go. So what is diversity? One of our panelists. So we don't have a perfect definition of diversity, but at least we can start by talking about some things that different kinds of diversity we might want to reflect on. Panelists.
In my shop, which may not seem like much for you, it's as easy as being diverse in the language that we speak. In terms of we're in an area where it's about 50% English speaking and 50% French speaking. And sometimes people that are English speaking don't know French and vice versa. So making sure that there's bridges there.
In our area, I have been trying very hard through the newsletter and any way that I can, to start a men's group. We have some men that come in the shop, but I would like to see more, and I'm trying to get more in touch with the younger generation. My daughter is in that generation and works the shop, and I'm trying to find a more inclusive way to get them in. And just anybody that walks in my door, I want them to feel welcome. And you can tell if they don't immediately. You can see it on their face, in their body language. And then the challenge becomes, how do I get them to feel like they are welcome here anytime?
I think race is
Yeah.
a big one. I'm Hispanic. Quebec is primarily white.
We've mentioned language, race,
Mhm.
age, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, social class, one that comes up, physical ability, attributes, religious or ethical values, national origin, political beliefs. Anything missing? Anyone in the audience? Sorry?
Body diversity.
Body diversity.
I think in any fashion-based industry, that is something I think that comes up again and again. Diversity of body representation, diversity of racial representation. I'm really happy that it is happening more and more. Like, people see themselves reflected as like beautiful people. And I think that as, you know, somebody whose business publishes designs and we do advertising in like magazines, it's always important to us to make sure that we show a range of different kinds of bodies so that people feel like they can see that we see them. You know, I don't want to market to like one person.
That's just a silly business decision to like market to one type of person.
Well, yeah.
I mean, to put
Yeah.
it very bluntly. Yeah. I mean, in addition to not being very nice, yeah. It's a bad business decision
It is
to
bad.
exclude, people.
And it is just also isn't representative of like who I see on a daily basis too. You know, you guys do that too. You have like very diverse visual representation.
We try.
Without feeling like tokenizing. That is important.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to represent. We started the magazine in London, which is a very diverse place, and we try to reflect that in our pages. And in January, when people really started talking about this, we realized that we weren't doing enough. And so I'm grateful to the people on social media and elsewhere who held us accountable.
I think what happened in January too was good, because even though I had comments said in the shop, that oftentimes we would shrug it off, or we'd kind of giggle, or my husband wouldn't understand why all of a sudden I got really upset about something, and I didn't really have a way to describe or to understand why I was feeling that way, because it was fairly new. I'm from New Orleans, which is very diverse, that it was very new for me to encounter these things. So I think while sometimes the conversations that have happened have been scary in terms of the intensity and not knowing how to internalize them, I think there's been really positive value at different levels.
So
And I think learning from that and knowing that you're not going to always have the right thing to say and having the right outcome every time, but internalizing that. I know there's been situations in our yarn shop that I go back later and go, oh, I wish I would have responded this way, but then you're armed for next time, right? So those are great things to be cognizant of while you're thinking about it and having those conversations.
Sorry, this microphone, you have to be like right on it. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning, and I wrote down this quote because I thought, oh, maybe I'll say that because that's very good. But it's actually a very good podcast. It's by a British author named Rennie Edo-Lodge. And she said on her podcast, I've noticed a cycle to the culture of woke, which is like an alert to injustice and in society, and racism is like wokeness. You've probably heard that word about. It pushes the limits and widens the possibilities of our culture by starting out as widespread criticism, which is then followed up by earnest action. And I thought, oh, I'm going to write that down because I feel like that really kind of captures a lot of like what has been happening on social media, where like people say they feel like they're being attacked or like aren't doing the right thing, or they don't know what the right thing is to do. And sometimes the point is that like you don't know, and that's okay. But then you have to hear that criticism and like learn from it and think about it and read about it and understand it and get comfortable with it. And through that, you actually come out on the other side with some really concrete like life skills, and that's a good thing.
I would add, like, when I had a lot of people coming to me saying, oh, it's really hard to see this person being called out or criticized, but I like to think of it as a critique rather than a criticism. Pretend that you're going to college to be a better person, and like, and people are giving you some notes, and whether you accept that and like on your next test you do better, like think of it that way, as a critique and not a criticism, and it might be a little bit easier for you to accept.
I think you find, or at least I have found, that you become an educator of others who, for whatever reason, have their own discriminatory opinions and feelings, and will start to voice them. And immediately we step in and say, we either try to address the topic in an educational way, or depending on which direction they're going, I mean, if it's in a very negative direction, we'll say, you need to change the subject. This is not, we just don't do that here. But it becomes very, very difficult to know which one to do sometimes. Where do you, as the yarn shop owner, draw the line? In my first newsletter, I asked people, I told them, we're not going to talk about politics in my store, and we're not going to talk about religion in my store, because it is the surefire topics to make someone angry and walk out. So if you want to talk about that, then you have to talk about it outside. It is not a welcome topic in my store.
So Yvonne's already started talking about how she's working to make her space feel more comfortable for people. So let's get going on inclusion. So I'm going to read a definition that's on my paper. Inclusion is involvement and empowerment where the inherent worth and dignity of all people are recognized. An inclusive organization promotes and sustains a sense of belonging. It values and practices respect for the talents, beliefs, backgrounds, and ways of living of its members. So for the panelists, are there any words in there that are most important to you in that definition?
Empowerment. We actually do the opposite in our shop. We encourage people to talk about religion, politics, and things, as long as everyone understands that you have a discussion. This is your opinion, and you can have a reaction to someone's opinion, but everyone must have respect, dignity, and it empowers people to see other people's perspectives as well. So, both are good ways to do it, but empowerment in that is definitely important to me.
I wish we could do that. I wish we
Sure.
could, but having seen what was going on before we purchased the shop,
And it has a
I-
lot to do with environment of
It
where
does.
you have
It-
and where you are and what you're setting up.
Where are you both from again?
I'm from Freeport, Illinois.
and we're from Arkansas.
Okay.
But we
Does a
are
lot.
in the northwest portion of the state, so it's very similar.
So it just became too volatile. People were becoming too divisive, and it was becoming it wasn't a comfortable place for people to come, and they wanted someplace to come to sit and have fun and enjoy, but it was becoming a place of anger, and we couldn't have that. So I had to say no more.
Yep.
And I mean, if it comes back to, and honestly, our country's in that kind of state of anger right now, and when it comes to politics. So I don't feel that my shop is exclusive in that. I'm just saying, I want my atmosphere more zen for everybody to come into. Can we have a more zen atmosphere? We can talk about anything else.
So
But
every different
leave that
business
out.
has different ways of
Yeah.
making
Absolutely.
the environment comfortable given the customers that it has. Were there any words from this definition that were missing? Anyone on the panel or anyone in the audience want to say something about inclusivity that they felt was missing?
Isn't part of the problem trying to make everybody so comfortable?
I think that's true. Yeah. I mean, I think there's people that have been used to being comfortable for hundreds of years, and there are people who have been used to being uncomfortable for that amount of time. And so it depends on who we're making comfortable or uncomfortable, I think, now.
And I think having somebody be uncomfortable is not a bad thing. There's a group on Facebook of yarn shop owners or fiber people in Quebec, so it's mainly Francophone. So I said I was going to be on the panel, and I asked people what do they do to be inclusive, and these are a lot of woke people, but they're all white and they're all women, and so it's but what was interesting was they all decided within a 24-hour time span that they wanted to do something about it all. And I was like, but it's okay, you don't have to. And I kind of, in private, because I don't, not in the whole group forum, I explained to somebody, you just opened your yarn shop. You're just getting to know the community. You may have, and she had been working on a PhD on diversity and inclusion, and she decided to set up a forum, and I'm like, you really don't know who the players are. And so she did feel uncomfortable, but I did let her know that I was okay with her. Good for her for having the energy and the effort to do something, but you can't solve all the problems in just by setting something up without knowing kind of what's going on in the situation.
And there's a bit, I'll say this from what I understand for me personally, there's a lot of feeling really good about doing something. So I can get my gold star and move on, even if you're not doing anything to be helpful to the people who are experiencing lifelong underrepresentation.
I like what she said, because someone else pointed that out to me recently. The excuses that the white community has had for the last 100 years are no longer good excuses.
Were they ever?
They never were. They need to change. We need to wake up. We need to come to a different vision. Our vision has been skewed, and we are being asked to look through different eyes.
Yeah, I mean, you asked before what some of the key words in that definition were, and I think dignity is a really great way to think about it because, you know, when you played the game earlier, you know, is it dignified for somebody to feel excluded because of X, Y, or Z? And I think that if you have been in a position where you haven't felt those things, it's really hard to see them. You know, you think, oh, does that really happen? Like that, you know, I haven't seen that or whatever. But if you're listening to people, and especially, I think especially on social media, because people feel comfortable speaking there because it's their own space. It's their own comfortable space to say what they want and be who they want to be. You'll see that they haven't always been treated in a very dignified way. So
Exactly.
And I think part of what we said, of believing in the inherent worth of what different people have to bring to the table is important too. So let's go to, here we go. So we've talked a bit about this, but I don't know if we've hit this hard enough. The average person, and we can do this with a show of hands, who doesn't really think of themselves as being someone who excludes other people? I'll do this, right? I'm not walking around with what I think of are overt discriminatory feelings, but there are for sure things that I do that create a discriminating feeling in those that I meet. So does anyone, we'll start with the panel and then I'll say in the audience, are there any examples of behaviors, especially in the industry, that might make people feel excluded?
I mean, I honestly think that race is the most important thing when it comes to diversity and what we should be talking about right now. And so, yeah, having not enough representation in our media generally is super important. But another one that's just starting to get talked about now is size exclusion, and just, you know, with our magazine, you know, we thought that we were doing fine, and then you realize that you know, somebody picks up our magazine and goes, oh my God, that's so beautiful, I want to make that, and then goes, oh no, I can't because they don't have my size. I mean, and you know, we have been trying to diversify our models recently, and so for photo shoots, we look for clothes, and I had no idea how hard it is to find clothes for people that aren't what we call a straight size. It broke my heart, like, you know, so just being aware of that kind of thing is so important, and I'm glad that people are speaking up. They shouldn't have had to speak up. We should have been there already, but
I have a lot of men who come in that say, well, where's patterns for us besides a scarf and a hat? Well, do you want to do a shawl? No. There's a lack, I think, out there for people to pick from, and we need the designers to kind of step that up a little bit.
Sorry, you go ahead.
I was just going to mention that for me, one thing that I've noticed a lot is when people say things that are culturally insensitive, or when there's a risk of thinking that it's appropriation, sometimes people don't know how to act in terms of, I'll give you an example. A designer in Quebec that I know made a great scarf, and she called it the Aztec scarf, so she's making the companion sweater. And I was like, just in private, I'm like, you know, maybe we could call it something else, because it's really pretty, but I'll never share your pattern to anyone, because to me, there's nothing Aztec about it except some geometric things, which I'm not particularly sure it's Aztec. And she was great about it. She's like, darn, now I have to go find a new name, but let's see what we can come up with. And I know she really took it to heart. This winter, I remember seeing an online publication, and seeing one of the patterns come out, and it had the name of a Guatemalan top which is called a huipil. The first thing I did, I called up my friend and I said, I think that's cultural appropriation, but what the hell do I know? I'm not an expert. Should I be upset? And so we debriefed it, and we thought maybe not. When I made a nice comment, I did not put anything like offensive. I just said, I'm concerned this may be cultural appropriation. And what I was told was that the designer in no way would have done cultural appropriation because she has a history of studying other cultures and what kind of things they do. So I felt like I was completely shut down and I was not allowed to express why I thought it was cultural appropriation. And I was okay to have a dialogue. I was not saying that's cultural appropriation, take it off, change the name. And I had that both from the designer, that kind of feedback, and the publication also piggybacked on that exact same thing and gave me the exact same reason why no way in hell would it have been cultural appropriation. So I sat there fuming.
So one thing I'm getting from what Lucinda is saying is the openness with which we're having these dialogues in some sense are almost more important than the initial comment that is or isn't made. Because once you say, nope, it's not only is the discussion over, but I'm also saying your opinion doesn't matter and I know more than you.
And it's about your culture. It was about my culture.
Yeah.
So I'm the better judge of it. I grew up going to Guatemala and I knew what a huipil was far more than what I saw in the article. But I never got a chance to discuss it.
I'm very sorry that happened to you. Yeah. Yeah.
I think Elliot has a question. Or
Are you giving an example that would be amazing to share to everyone? Yeah, you. And I'm just going to repeat it in case everyone couldn't hear him very well. Large print for people who are vision impaired, and we have no ASL interpreter up here. And just raising the point that these are populations who for sure are participating in our industry and we're not providing the resources for. And are we expecting someone to come to us and ask, pretty please, could you make it so I can attend? Or are we being proactive in setting up resources so that they feel comfortable attending without needing to ask?
So adding to that is that not every disability is visual. I happen to be disabled. I travel with a service animal, and when I walk into a store, every time I have to explain why I have a travel animal. I shouldn't have to tell you what my disability is.
Yep.
I don't, in this whole diversity thing, I don't really feel that it's important that I, A, have to come out, B, tell you who I am, or, you know, I should just be allowed to be a human being. Find out what when you say no to somebody like that, you are now shutting yourself off from learning something. We are guaranteed that this will stay a white-only, very preliminary thing. I just finished doing Stitches United in Atlanta, and I'm going to tell you the average shopper that was in my booth was a person of color that spent real money, not can I have the $5 gain. Real money, appreciative of the quality product. They're looking for it. They want to spend their money. In your store.
I'm going to rephrase a bit of what Alexandra is saying because it touches on unconscious bias. I've heard people say, oh, of course there's no African-American people in our audience because they don't value good yarn. Who's heard something like that? People actually say these things, and they're false, like fake news. It's just false. I've also heard, of course, larger people don't knit because it costs them too much to make sweaters. These are false things. And the more we talk about them and talk about how they're false, the less I think it can lie in the background.
On the note of inclusion, I did want to add in the conversation as well. Being the male panelist here, I think you'd be wrong not to, talk about the male exclusion of some, when you go to a yarn shop. I know my husband and I both, before we owned our yarn shop, walking into yarn shops, and I'm sure none of your shops would do this, but there are many of them that when you walk in and you pick up a skein of yarn, they'll go, "That's for knitting." And they'll take it out of your hand and put it down, and they go, "Is there something we can help you with?" That wouldn't happen here, but that is definitely a conversation that male knitters are having, and how to feel included. Also, as a male owner, having customers walk in and feel excluded because the owner or she is not here. So exclusion can happen on both sides, right? And we have to recognize that when that happens, when they go, "Can I speak to the owner?" And I go, "That's me, I'm the owner." I go, "When is she going to be here?" And when you answer, "Not today," never.
Not ever.
There are times they walk out. And so the exclusion can happen on both sides. And how do we reach to that person still, right? Like, how do we open up? And the conversation definitely should be race as well. But when we have these conversations about anything, excluded male, religion, all those things, it opens up that conversation to other races and size and all that stuff. So just wanted to make sure I threw that out there.
I think age too, I just learned.
Absolutely.
Age is a big thing.
Yeah.
I'm getting older. If I wear my hair like this, it's all silver underneath. I found a hashtag I liked. Was like middle-aged Mondays or something weird. I can't even remember. So one day when I had a picture on my Instagram post where you see all the gray hairs, I thought, I'm just going to assume myself and just go with it because I feel like I look pretty good. I'm just going to embrace it. And then I got all these kind of attacks because I was promoting yarn and my business on the same photo I had used my hashtag. So basically I said, thank you for excluding me because my Instagram is a business page. It's not a Coca-Cola page. It's a small business. So I'm still embracing my gray hairs, but.
We had a
I just
question in
wanted
the
to
back.
add really quickly a thing about being actively more inclusive. For me, I think it's really important to, and I had to really train myself to be direct with people. It is not my natural way of being. Kate can attest to this. I like to dance around things sometimes, but it is once you kind of start, if somebody says something and it rubs you the wrong way, I know that as a white person in society that people sort of naturally believe what I say, and that has some power. So when someone is talking nonsense or being actively exclusionary, it is something that I feel safe doing to say, hey, this is what I hear you saying and this is what it means to me. And is that actually what you mean to say? Because what you're saying is racist. Do you have anything to say to that? And it's okay to do. I think if, I was raised to be very polite, but it isn't rude actually to tell someone that they're being really disrespectful.
In your space, especially if you're at
In
yarn
the
shop or
world.
anywhere. I mean, especially if we're talking in the terms of, our spaces as a shop.
Right.
That's really your place to be, hey.
It's a place
Let's
where you
bring
have
this back
power.
home.
Also.
Yeah. So I think just the point to be a way to be really active about it is just to claim that power if you feel like it is a privilege that you have. Yeah.
I think we had a question in the back or a comment.
It's Dennis, are you moderating my moderating?
I'm sorry.
Good.
She caught my eye.
I didn't catch it. You couldn't hear it.
Hello, hello, yay.
Yeah.
I have been in a shop where it was the only shop available at that time, and it's been a while, they're gone now. But it was mostly women older than me. I'm 60 now, so that was maybe 91 or 01, 02, something like that. And they didn't know what to do with young creatives who had tattoos and pierces. No, it's not even funny. So they would just get ignored or followed around the store as if they're going to steal, which is another thing that happens when there are people we see as other, is you see them as going to be threatening to your merchandise. But you know, there is a whole new generation of people who are learning to sew from YouTube and who are wanting to do other kinds of handwork. And those people did not feel safe in that store to shop.
Thank you.
I think too, like, it's awesome that designers are moving to include more sizes.
She said it's awesome designers are moving to include more sizes.
That's like the first step in thinking about body inclusivity. I'll stand up for a minute. I am often the largest or second to largest size, which is odd. But what I think about a lot, because I dye yarn, so I'm not always in the shops. But when I'm in a shop, now I'm thinking a lot more about how tight are these aisles? Could we get a wheelchair in here? Could people larger than myself comfortably walk down these aisles and buy my product?
So yeah, I'm going to ask Dennis to say something because he has previously revealed that at his booth he created more space and it was really amazing. So
we do a lot of the Stitches events, and we sponsor the Stitches events as well. And we added 2 booths to our 4-booth lineup. Now we're 6 booths, specifically for larger aisle sizes. And we did find that the flow through the booths are much better. And actually, we had a customer on a wheelchair pull up and come through, and she's like, I can get everywhere. This is so cool. I was like, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that.
And so I'm going to highlight something hidden in there. When you make your shop, business, etc. world better for some people, you actually usually make it better for all of the people. It's not like a pie slice or a tug of war. It's not like, oh, if I use this model, these people aren't going to like it. No, it actually just makes everyone feel more comfortable.
I was going to say, a lot of places, I was an architect before, an ADA expert, and a lot of small businesses, they have big enough bathrooms, but they fill their bathrooms with so much stuff, and it's so hard to get to the bathroom that it's not really an accessible bathroom anymore. And who wants to have the humiliation of asking if they can use the restroom and then realize that they can't get into the room or can't cross the threshold? And I do think it's rude. Either strollers, there's just all kinds of things that if your shop is, if there's not enough room, or if you have to bend on the floor to pick everything up to look at it, it's not friendly.
Yeah, so I'm also going, this is also written on my paper. Oh, this one's hard. I feel it myself. Always assume ignorance, not malice. That can be a hard one because things come out in tones and stuff. But to Courtney's point earlier, opening a dialogue and inviting people to ask questions and asking your own clarifying questions can be really helpful. Do we have another example? Yeah.
I just wanted to talk about ways to actively incorporate inclusivity, and I think something that can just be kind of a guiding principle is to check your assumptions. Just try to assume less about people and ask more questions, but politely. So where this is coming from is, like Stacy, I don't have a lot of, I don't check a lot of diversity boxes. I'm white, cisgendered, straight. But I have experienced going into literally the same shop on different days, dressed in jeans and a t-shirt one day, and visibly expensive yarn on a different day, and getting completely different customer service. And then I've also witnessed in yarn shops people coming in, and I can see the staff kind of pigeonholing them and making recommendations based on what they perceive that person as being able to afford. And, you know, so if you were to check your assumption and just ask, hey, what's your budget for this project? Like, that's not an offensive question. That's an informational question to help give them the best possible service. The same way you could check your assumption and not necessarily go, oh, are you making this for your husband? Assuming that that person is married, is gay or straight, or, you know, whatever assumption you're making there.
And that's another example that helps everyone, because you can walk in a Gucci dress and you spent all your yarn money on your Gucci dress. And so knowing where your customer is at is really helpful for everyone, not just people you perceive to be not big spenders. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a new yarn shop owner, and we are in an area that is very culturally diverse. We're on the edge of a very low income African-American neighborhood, an upper income Jewish and also Protestant white communities. There's quite a lot of intermingling right where we are. And one of the things we did is we wrote both a mission statement in our business plan that we would include and welcome all. And we also shared that with our employees in an employee handout. We have 4 employees. They are of completely different backgrounds and personalities, but we wanted them all to know that. And I think one of the things we can do to be more inclusive is have stated goals.
Is your mission statement public?
It isn't. There's a lot of things that aren't on our website yet, but it could be on our website. It is public to our employees, and it was public in our business plan.
I mean, I know some people feel kind of weird about publicly stating how inclusive they intend to be. But as someone who, you know, being from a mixed race family didn't always feel included, I appreciate it when it's explicit.
The name of our shop is Around the Table.
Oh, that's very nice.
It's pretty inclusive.
But I would like to say that that you having that mission statement at all is what lots of people would call active anti-racism. And it's not just saying, I'm okay with everybody. It's like actually, you know, and some people might say having a statement's not enough, and that's true. You have to also back it up. But I think that it's great that you've put it into words, and I would love it if it was out there for everybody to see so that they know.
Frame it on the wall. So we only have 5 minutes left. I would really like to hear from anyone in the audience who heard something that either surprised them or a message that really resonated with you, where you're going to do something or you feel something different from before when you walked in this room.
Stacey, I have.
Yeah.
So I really resonated with what was said over here. I have a question. I don't have an answer. I just have a question. I have a question about the financial barrier. I love this industry. I love knitting. I would love for every young person, every old person, every middle-aged person that wants to be able to get some knitting needles and some yarn in their hands and start knitting and have great education at the same time. I hope it doesn't sound hypocritical. Obviously, we're the owners of a luxury yarn line. I feel like what I'm saying is kind of incongruous, right? But it's still, I also have to say, I also was a Waldorf school teacher for many years. I taught hundreds of little 6-year-olds how to knit. So I don't know if it's hundreds, but 100. I don't know, a lot. So it did. It seemed like several hundred. So this is something that I do actually believe in. I think we do what we can to donate yarn, to to do stuff to help promote that vision. At the same time, it's just a question. What can we do as an industry to not make people feel like, well, you know what, the cheap yarn is over there at Joann's Fabrics. You can pop over there. You know, you can buy yarn at Walmart. You know, I mean, what do we do to make people feel like that there is not a financial barrier? Again, regardless, I don't feel like that has anything to do with gender, race.
So is there anyone who runs a yarn shop who feels like they comfortably have accessible options or a statement?
This is not an answer, but in our yarn shop, we try really hard to express that every yarn has a purpose, and not having expensive yarn or knitting with expensive yarn is bad. Like every yarn, it has a purpose. Everything is good, and whatever you choose to utilize is what you use. We try really hard in our knitting circles to when you get the ones like, oh, I only use this kind of yarn, or and trying to put others down, because it does happen, right? It's part of our culture. We try to jump in instantly on that and really be on target of like, hey, everything, there's good yarn for everything, and everyone can have a project. Are we knitting? Yes. Everyone starts from somewhere, right? And that's kind of where we jump to.
Or crocheting.
Again, not an answer
Yes.
to everything.
There was recently a
We do
video on
fiber.
Facebook about a gentleman who wanted to knit with cashmere and expensive yarns, and he was retired, he was a veteran, and he simply did not have the budget to do it. So he goes out to like Goodwill and to secondhand stores, and he finds old sweaters, things that are made with those, and he buys them, and then he takes them apart and he makes what he wants. And I had posted it on my Facebook page, and somebody said, why would you as a yarn shop owner do that? That's not promoting us to come buy your yarn. And I said, because I believe in upcycling. And I said, why don't we do that one night? Why don't we as a group go find some stuff? Even I bet we've got some at home that doesn't fit anymore, whatever. Let's do it. Let's take it apart. Let's make it, and then we'll donate that stuff.
And if you have people doing something,
yeah,
they're going to utilize yarn.
It's
right?
like it's
So
let's
action.
it's a teaching moment. Let's do it. Let's take it, and we're going to do something.
Last comment.
So in my booth, I had an African-American woman come into my booth, and I greeted her with the way I greet everybody. Hey, hi, how are you? How can I help you? And she just was taken aback and thanked me, because not everybody greets her that way. And there were a lot of booths that she didn't feel comfortable going into because she was treated like a second-class citizen.
Thanks for sharing that.
So it's our faces and our words that are going to make the biggest difference.
So we do encourage you to continue this conversation all week long, right? You can all say that all these people are friendly. You can say, hey, I went to the panel on Wednesday night. Did you go? What did you think about it? And have conversations. As we said, these aren't experts. These are people who volunteered their time, but we all can have conversations amongst ourselves about how to move the conversation forward. I know it says Courtney thanks the panelists.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do want to just say again how appreciative I am that these people did come forward. We put this together with not a lot of time, so I think it was oh yes. Well, I'll finish this thought and then I'll do that thought. But I think it's really great that people were able to come out tonight. I think it's really great that we're starting this conversation, and this is not the end of the conversation, obviously. You have some feedback handouts there, and you can fill those out and leave them. There's a bin. Yeah, so this was live streamed to members who did not register for this event. So if you registered for this event, you didn't get this email, which is why you're probably thinking, why didn't they email us the link to like watch the live stream? So the link to watch this live went out to membership who did not register for this event, basically. But this live stream will exist on the TNNA website for you to watch in the webinars section, I believe. It will be like a free webinar that any member can watch. So encourage people to watch it who you know weren't here tonight, because that is available to every member. Thank you all for coming.
And thank you for
Let's have a great show.